What would you do if you're given a clay dragon by your landlord that can tell the future? Well, this is exactly what happened to David Rain in the book Fire Within by Chris DeLacy. To begin with, David Rain is a college student that becomes a tenant of Elizabeth and Lucy Pennycettle, which is the initial situation. David soon gets to know Lucy as she introduces him to her squirrel drama, including saving a squirrel that is injured. Secondly, Elizabeth makes David his own special dragon, Gazooks, as a gift, which created the trigger of the story. Lucy then encourages David to write a story about the squirrels, Conker, and Snigger. As a result, David starts writing a story about the two squirrels called Snigger and the Nutbeast, which is an adventurous story about how Snigger will help save his friend Conker, making it the first rising action. A second rising action is when David realizes the events in the story seem to be mirroring events in the real world. For example, when David writes Conker would be saved by the animal sanctuary, it happened just hours after it was written. Soon, David begins to question the clay dragons as they seem to be moving on their own. The final rising action is when David learns that Gazooks can tell the future just by writing in his notebook. As a result of Gazooks being able to predict the future, David and Lucy manages to catch and save Conker, making it the climax of the story. However, when Gazooks predict Conker will die in the library gardens, David gets angry and he lets out his rage on the dragon, causing Gazooks to fade away from his conscience, creating the falling action. David then goes to the library gardens and sure enough, the injured squirrel was dead. After the burial of Conker, David learns that if the dragons are not loved, their fire will burn out and they will die. Finally, Elizabeth returns and she reminds David that the dragons need to be loved and sends David into a very real dream in which he saves Gazooks, which concludes the story. The main character in the book is David Rain. David is a responsible, forgiving, and creative person. First, David shows responsibility by leaving a note on the table, gone for a walk, took 2 bottles to the recycling bin, and washed the dishes. This shows that he is a good tenant and that he doesn't leave a mess for the landlord to clean. Secondly, he shows forgiveness by forgiving Gazooks after he predicted that Conker would die. Quote, "All better?" asked David. Gazooks gave a grateful nod. Quote, by forgiving Gazooks, David saved his life and kept his friendship with him. Finally, David shows creativity by writing a story. In the book, he writes the adventurous story Snigger and the Nutbeast about 2 squirrels and their journey to help save one of them. This led to David finding out his dragon can tell the future. The main setting of the story is in the library gardens. In the library gardens is where David captured and helped save Conker, but it is also where he found him dead and where he buried him. The tone of the book is humorous because the characters do silly things, such as Lucy biting David when she was mad at him, and when Conker jumped on David's face when he tried to pick him up. The theme of the story is friendship. Friendship is portrayed in this story because Lucy becomes friends with David and David's friendship with Gazooks. The author is trying to tell us that friendship is very important and that if we break it, we must fix it. The song that relates to the book is You Got a Friend in Me by Randy Newman.
You got a friend in me. If you got trouble, I got them too. Then guess I can't be but what do you do?
The lyrics "Friend in Me" relates to the book a lot because David always had Gazook in his heart, which relates to the phrase "friend in me." The phrase "there isn't anything I wouldn't do for you" relates to the book because David did all he can to try to save Gazooks from dying. A personal experience is that my cousin is like Lucy. She is very energetic and she loves wildlife. Although it may not be specifically squirrels, she loves wildlife such as turtles, whales, and birds, and she wants to help them keep their natural habitat just like Lucy did with Conker by trying to help him. I would give this book 6 out of 10. In my opinion, the storyline wasn't that great. It was boring at the beginning, but it did pick up in the middle of the book. Most of the book was about trying to rescue a squirrel and saving him, but I find that very boring as there wasn't any action or any cliffhangers that make you want to turn the. However, the details in the book were great, that's why I gave it 6 out of 10. In conclusion, I would say that friendship is very important. Creating a friendship with anyone regardless of age and gender is something to treasure. I also learned that friendship is not only with humans, but also with animals, just like David's friendship with Gazooks. Thank you for listening to my presentation. In conclusion, I would say that friendship is very important.